Hello and welcome back to our conversation. Thank you so much for being here. We're always so grateful to have you guys listening. Today we're going to talk about a few things. Obviously, our conversations here are always inspired by conversations at my training studio that spark incredible conversations. And a couple days ago, Ellen and I had a fascinating conversation in the car on the way home, and I was just kicking myself thinking, why were we not recording this? This was so darn good. But what we want to talk about today is, I have this question about how do we empower women and normalize how we perceive things or how things come up in the world, especially when it comes to our living our purpose. Imposter syndrome is a really big one. And like dealing with things, obviously, like cancel culture. So, hi, Ella. I'm so happy that you're here.
Hi, I'm happy to be here too.
And I'm excited about our conversation today, especially after our conversation in the car on maybe Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. You
Yeah.
said you said when you were doing the introduction, oh, why weren't we recording this? And I remember literally saying that to you. I was like, this is so good. And it was so raw and it was so real. And it really is. I don't think it's something that just we're going through. I think it's very real for everyone, at least at some point in their life.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one thing so incredible I've noticed about conversations over the years is that conversations are a fabulous teacher, right? If you and I can have a conversation about something and just kind of speak to what we're feeling or speak to what's on our heart, like we see this, we call it magic moments at the training studio when we're in the presence of other women, where, someone's talking about something and it's just this magical thing happens because you literally see it on people's faces where they're this light bulb moment where they're like, I know exactly what you're talking about and what you're feeling.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to witness, and it's even more special to like actually be a part of. Yeah, you feel it. Everyone feels it.
Yeah, it really is. It's a really special thing. So let's talk about um everyone has this, I think everyone goes through this at some point where they know they want to be doing something specific or they feel like they're not really aligning with their purpose, yet they're so afraid to make a move. And this was kind of what started our conversation the other day. And I want to talk about that with you because I know you have been, or you are, or you have been in this position at some point where you have it all inside of you, you know what you want to do, but what is it that keeps you from like I said, like playing your cards or making your move?
Like the fear of not being taken seriously.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of women deal with.
Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't matter how old, how young. Um, it could be fear of, is it fear of not being taken seriously, or just, do you think people are in this position right now where um they they're afraid of other people's opinions, right? Because we live in this crazy time right now where everybody is on Instagram, TikTok, social media, and everybody is an expert. This is what I said to you the other day. Everybody is a global expert in everything, even if they have no experience. And so you have these like two sides of the fence where you have people who have no experience and they think they're an expert. And I can totally say, when I was young, that was me. I probably was like, I've told Ella so many times, the more experience I've gained over the years, like I have to really check myself because when I was, 25 years old and I had very little experience, I thought I knew everything. And the more educated I've become, the more experience I've had, the more women I've worked with, the more experience as a mom I've had. Like now as a parent, I think, oh my gosh, do I even know what I'm doing? But I actually have so much more experience.
Yeah. I'm sitting here, I'm trying to think. So I'm like, okay, I said that I have this fear of not being taken seriously, but I think that goes and even like a step back even further, and maybe even further than that, that I haven't realized yet. But when So like the essence of not being taken seriously is that people think you're incompetent, people make fun of you, they laugh, but that goes against your identity of who you believe you are. And that's why it's so scary, because we all have this persona of who we think we are, and we're afraid that someone could so easily take that away from us, because essentially our thoughts and our beliefs, we identify with those. So if someone disagrees with your one of your thoughts and your beliefs, sometimes if you haven't done the inner work, you want to take it personally.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that's true though? As in, do you think that people are that easily like rocked in their belief systems of themselves?
Definitely.
Why? Like, why do you think that? I shouldn't say it like, why do you think that? I don't mean it that way. I'm just like so curious right now. Just because I value everything that you say and I'm curious about this. I feel
Yeah,
like,
I think it's really easy to get information from anywhere. Like you said, we live in a time where everyone's an expert. So, we want to believe that we know what we're talking about, but if someone tells us we don't know what we're talking about, you don't feel good about yourself.
mhm.
What was your question? Like if you could put that into like a question, what you asked, why do I think that? But
Like, why do you think that is that people place so much value in what other people say about them or think about them? Like, well, I have a lot of curiosity around this because this is something I've dealt with probably my whole career is the fear of being called out by
Mhm.
someone. Um, like you nailed it, making me feel like I don't know what I'm talking about, even though we had this conversation before, not on here, but about like it being my truth at that time, right? If what I believe and what I'm teaching is my truth, then why am I so worried about someone calling me out on it? And
I
I think
think
everyone suffers from this.
I want to get back to that, but I also want to cover something that like back long time ago, before we were living in this modern age, like we relied off each other as a species to flourish. We weren't good on our own. So the thoughts and opinions of our tribes and being connected to everyone is what kept us alive. So if you're outcasted or singled out and people don't like you, your life is on the line. You probably aren't going to have a good source of food, a good source of shelter, or any of that. And just because we now live in this modern time doesn't mean like our brains haven't, or our DNA, our brains, all of that hasn't evolved to catch up with where we currently are. Because all of this is so new, like social media, laptops, the internet, all of it. Um, but I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add it or thoughts on that.
No, I totally, yeah, I agree with that.
Mhm. And then back to what you were saying, so now we live in this modern time where like you don't really have to worry about being separated from people. We still have that innate like survival instinct, which has served us really well for a long time. But now like there's so many houses around, there's so much access to food, well, like in our country where we currently live, that's not really a real issue. So we have this fear of doing something simple like posting our opinions online. And even though, like you said, and we have talked about this before, at the time, this is like the knowledge we have that we know. It's not like we're maliciously intending to be like, I'm going to give people the wrong information and throw them off. Like, you truly believe this. So, and you share it. There's nothing wrong with sharing your truth, and then you're totally allowed to change your mind at any point in time that you want. There's always new studies coming out, there's always new information being revealed, and as humans we are flawed species. Everything we've designed and created is flawed, and we learn by making upgrades. So just like the very first MacBook is nowhere near like the MacBooks we have now. They learned from the errors that happened, and now we have this evolved version that is so much more better than it was before. We're allowed to have the same thing with our opinions, where we can have our opinions and we're allowed to evolve them over time as we receive more information.
That's actually so true, because I tell people all the time, and I probably have said it on here too, but what I would have told somebody in that time, like in my 20s, with regards to my industry, there wasn't as much research there. Like we all got our information from the same 3 fitness magazines, and then from failure, like failing, working with people, figuring out what worked, what didn't work, failing forward, right? Like doing something and refining it and doing it again and refining it. But now I feel like people, so anyway, what I was going to say is, so what I tell people all the time, how I would have talked to someone, how I would have coached somebody, the information I would have given a female on how to get the best results, 15 or 20 years ago, is so different than how I would coach them now. Like I kind of laugh at some of the things that I thought I knew then, but over the course of, like I said, like working with people and gaining experience to back the knowledge I thought I had, like obviously my opinions have evolved and I don't feel bad about that.
And you also needed to have those opinions you had before to build off of them to be at the place you're currently at. And just because you have very evolved opinions now doesn't mean that you won't change them in the future. And I think people are one of our, I think many people's fears is to admit that they're wrong, because you don't want to seem like you're incompetent or that you don't know what you're doing. But really, like, my opinion, when someone can admit they're wrong, I actually respect them more. And there's something, I forget specifically what it's called. I wish I knew the name, but humans, we naturally are drawn more towards mistakes, and not because we want to make fun of them, but a lot of the time it makes the person more relatable.
Yeah, that is so true. I was just having a thought about, like, it's so funny because in business or even in parenting now, something that I say all the time is, like I said this to Eddie not very long ago, this is my opinion right now, but maybe in 5 or 10 years from now, I'll look back on, how I'm parenting you or what my beliefs are in this current moment. And I won't believe that anymore. But for me right now, this is my truth. And I think that in business too.
Yeah.
And I do think people respect that.
It's where like the quote comes in that you say all the time that I learned from you, is that we do the best we can with what we currently have, the knowledge we currently have. And it's so true.
Yeah, I think that definitely that has saved me in so many ways. I probably more saved me from myself than anyone else. Right? We do the best we can with what we have in any current time. I want to talk a little bit about, because we just kind of briefly mentioned cancel culture. And so it's funny because I look at a lot of young people and I feel for them, because we do live in this time now that is so different than even when I grew up, like when I was your age. And it seems people aren't given enough grace to fail anymore. Like we don't respect failure the way I think we once did. Or maybe I shouldn't say we don't
Not
respect
even
failure.
failure, like, yes, failure, but mistakes.
Mistakes, right? So we don't give people the opportunity to make mistakes and then learn from them because of cancel culture. At least this is the way I see it. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. And honestly, I've never really understood cancel culture. Um, like like a long time ago, I don't even remember how long, but like there were a lot of people with videos being surfaced of them saying like racial slurs or like things like that. And people were like, we hate you, we're gonna rip your platform away, your source of income, like all of that. You're shunned, you're a terrible person. And I always thought, why don't we educate this person on why what they're saying is wrong, and like the history of the word, and why it's inappropriate to say it, rather than literally ruining their lives. And I'm not justifying what, like, mistakes aren't right, but we don't need to ruin people's lives over them. And then it makes, now we have like this weird woke culture where people are overly offended over like the simplest, smallest things. Like, I've seen a woman expressing her opinion on having a doula for birth and people calling her like a baby murderer, which is like what? Whoa, that's like so extreme and out of nowhere. And you're allowed to have your own personal preference. Sure, there can be complications happen where if you're not in a hospital, there your baby's at higher risk, but just because you choose to do an at-home birth doesn't mean, like things like this. And I'm like, wow, people are so quick to get so offended over things that really don't don't involve them at all.
It's really interesting. It almost creates a situation where people just regurgitate the same information that they know is accepted to society.
And they never like go deeper into that and actually research it, and also research it from a bunch of different sources and compare the information to make sure that what you know is correct.
I love how you just said woke culture, because I've noticed that a lot over the last few years, where it almost seems as though we shun people for any kind of mistake that they may make, whether it's a big one or a small one, right? Like if someone says something that isn't, pardon me, in alignment with your beliefs, not yours, but with someone's beliefs, they feel entitled to say whatever they want, right? So it's so weird. It almost seems really one-sided. Like if you're sharing information, you can be like, you have to be really careful. But then if you're commenting on information, you can say whatever you want.
That's so true. And
It's
usually it's because people are hidden behind the fake profile or whatever it is that doesn't have their name or their face. Um, but yeah, it's definitely interesting. And one thing I've noticed is that the people who, and this is just my perspective, but the people who do make those comments and do say those things, one, they would never say it to you to your face in person. They couldn't. They'd be too afraid to. And two, they usually, to be so mean and hurtful and to say things out of pocket usually means that you're hurting. I have this saying that like hurt people hurt people. And it's so true because like, I think of you and I think of me, we're like, we're very happy with ourselves. We're very healthy. We're focused on things like our family, creating successful careers. We don't have the time to go post and write a long rage or go on a huge tangent on about how I'm offended by the color of your wedding dress or like, something so silly.
I'm going to share a little story. So there was just the Bikini International, which is the Arnold Classic. Like it's hosted at the Arnold Classic. And of course, I still love to follow a lot of this stuff. And a gentleman that I worked with for years just happened to be the coach of the girl that placed first in the bikini category. And they were doing a live together. And so, of course, I love Kim. So I watched it. I was having lunch and I was watching. It was a 30-minute live. And because it was a live video, the comments. So I have this rule with myself, like I don't go back and read controversial comments because I think it does nothing good for my life, right? I kind of filtered things in a way where if it doesn't like inherently add value to me, I'm out. I'm out. I don't need to read negative comments. But so I haven't watched a live in a really long time. Often I'll watch, say, a playback of something and I'll just ignore the comments. But it was so crazy. There were a couple women on, I believe they were women, on this live where this woman who just was crowned the with the best physique in the world. Okay, so she looked amazing. She looked amazing. And the comments were like, there were a couple people that could not stop commenting on her voice and just trying to like find someone. It seems so obvious to me that these people were commenting to see if there's someone that would agree with them. And there were two of them actually. They kept commenting over and over. Is it just me, or does her voice seem way deeper? Like insinuating, you know,
Not good things.
go wherever you want. But it just, I hate.
People will always find something though. If it wasn't her voice, it would have been something else. It maybe would have been a scar she had. It maybe would have been her teeth, the way her makeup looked. I find people who take the time to say things like that, really it just mirrors the insecurities they have about themselves, and they want to find something wrong with people, which is why really you shouldn't worry. I have this rule for myself where like if I ever receive any negative comments or anything on social media, which I have, like and you just delete it. It's not worth responding to because you're giving all your power away to the person. And then they're just gonna come right back at you. It's not worth it. If you delete it, it's just gone. And I think some people who cannot handle like not having the last word, they're like, aren't you gonna defend yourself? But like, no, I don't feel the need to. I'm okay with what I say. I'm okay with who I am. And if that person feels that way, okay, like, sure, but other people don't need to see it, and I don't need to see it. And it can just be gone. Chances are this person, they're so miserable in that moment they made that comment, and then they're gonna go eat a snack, do whatever, go to their job they hate, and totally forget the next day that they even wrote that.
This totally reminds me of this. I'm really good at sharing stories, so I'm going to share another story, but it reminds me of this one time that I had posted a progress photo. It was of myself. I posted it was like I'd been totally crushing it in the gym, hadn't missed anything, had been really working on progressive overload, working on mastering things that I really don't like some lifts that I really avoid, which means I probably need them. And I was really proud of my progress. I had eaten the most calories I'd ever eaten, had been able to put on some lean mass, but also like lean out a little bit. And so I posted this like progress photo because I love progress photos. I love seeing people's progress. I love it. It's one of my favorite things. It's so empowering and inspiring. And so I shared this photo, and there was a gentleman, I'm not even gonna call him a gentleman, some dude. He was not a gentleman, made a comment on my photo that was actually really hurtful and really, really mean. And it was not true at all. And I got so pissed off.
Go find a picture of his wife.
Can I say that? Okay, so you know what I did? I took a screenshot of what he commented to me and I put it on top of my photo, and I wrote this like in the heat of the moment. Now, remember, this is quite a long time ago. Wrote out this thing, and I was so proud of myself for myself. And oh my gosh, Dave, he came home and he was just like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I was expecting him to totally be supportive. And he was like, you should take that down. Like, why would you stoop to that level? Why would you even do that?
I can't believe you did that.
He totally called me out on it. I was so, I'm going to say butthurt that he did that. I was like, what? This isn't about me. And he was like, no, it's totally about you. Like, why are you like, he's like, oh,
You made it about you by responding to it.
Yeah, that was such a moment of growth for me, because I was like, wow, I didn't like being number one. I hated being called out by him, because I was like, you are supposed to love and support me no matter what. And then I realized like a while later, I was like, oh, he does love and support me. And that's why he was like, no, no, no. don't do that. Like delete the comment, delete the post. Like you don't need to do that.
Yeah,
And that was
because
such a big
he
moment.
looked bad doing that, and then made you look bad by responding to it.
Hey, I actually, looking back on it, I'm like, I actually think it made me look worse because when
Yeah.
I see people do that, I don't think like that is not empowering them. It is the opposite. It disempowers people when they do that. And so when I was
You
watching that
feel
live,
really
I was like, should I comment? But I was like, no, don't. Like it's disempowering. It's not helping anyone. It doesn't involve you. Don't say anything. So I
Well,
didn't.
I've definitely had a couple times where I'm watching a video and then I've been reading the comments and there's someone who says something and I'm like, they're so wrong. And I want to say something and then I'll write it and I'll be like, no, not worth it. I don't have the time to waste. I would rather invest my energy
Mhm.
into something more productive, something that actually benefits me and doesn't make me feel worse about myself. Because
Yeah,
if you
because
have to respond, it's like essentially confirming that what they said was true.
and it keeps you in that,
Mhm.
right? Like I think this, and you and I talk about this quite a bit. Like if someone does something that doesn't align with you and you keep reliving it, like you keep talking about it and you like this is something I think I want to say this is something I've learned over like as I've gotten older. Um it you literally essentially give all of your power to that person by continuing to live in it, right? They've moved on. People that comment on stuff like that, like when people are negative, they comment and then they move on to the next person. And they always find something, I think, to comment on or something to,
Yes.
but it really like, and I feel that like you literally can feel your energy and your vibration drop. Like you're like, where is the floor on this? Like I can't even find it.
Yeah.
So then with cancel culture, I don't know, like having this conversation, I'm like, then why do we care about people not aligning with us or about I shouldn't say cancel culture, but if we don't want to give our power away and we have these stories and these examples, then why like why have imposter syndrome?
I don't know. It's a good question. But I want to share a quote that I'm thinking of that came to me. And I might butcher this, but like if everybody likes you, you've messed up or you've done something wrong. You don't want to please everyone, and people can really feel that as well. But like if you want to have a group of people that like totally love and unconditionally support you, and naturally there are other people who have the complete opposite view and you're going to totally offend them. But that's a good thing too. Anyway, like either way, at the end of the day, if someone is taking their precious, valuable time and using their life force energy to make a mean, hateful comment, they're like, you can transform the energy that is projected towards you. You could view it as, wow, I challenged this person's perception or view or perspective so much that they felt the need to throw this essentially this energy at me, but I'm gonna just take it and transform it, and I'm gonna use this to make more of what I'm good at. I'm gonna use this energy to create. And just because it's negative, one, doesn't mean that you can't transform it, but two, literally they're giving you their time and energy, even though it's not good. Like, have you ever heard of like, there's like controversial celebrities and they're famous because everyone hates them, but they're still famous?
Mhm.
They're still making money. You're still watching their video and they're still getting paid because you're taking your time to watch it. So I
Yeah.
think you just need to view, and you need to be careful with like how you use that, but you definitely can use that strategy to be like, I'm gonna use this to power me, to influence me, to create more.
Mhm. I'm totally gonna call you out on here then. Why are you personally so held back? Because you know that I freaking adore you and everything that you do. And I'm like an Ella groupie, even though you're my child. I'm like, my God, you're so smart. Like, I'm like, you're so wise. Tell me everything you know. Like, I ask you advice on so many things because I actually, to like, honestly, really, really, really respect you and
Oh,
your the way that you view things. But why? I'm calling you out on here. Like, what's holding you back from sharing your greatness?
I don't know. I can't figure it out. I'm like, oh, it's my
I,
perfectionism, but
hmm,
it's paralysis almost. I don't know.
is it paralysis by analysis? Because you're like, I just want to say, oh my gosh, you have influenced me. You're half my age. And yet you have influenced me to like go down some paths and uncover some really, really big things that have really pushed my life in a phenomenal way, I would say, and drastically changed my experience of myself. And so, like, I think I'm like, why aren't you sharing this with people? Because you know, it's in you, you know it.
I know. I don't know. I think it's like a few things. There's like, oh, I don't want the people I know to see because I don't want it to influence their image of me. I don't know why. I feel like maybe I have some people in my life that I need to maybe disconnect from that, or maybe even reconnect with on a deeper level so that like I don't want to be criticized by the people I love the most or be like, "Oh yeah, you think you know everything because you do this." Like I actually don't think I know everything, but I just love to give advice and I love to share. And I don't know, it makes me feel really good. And I know some people aren't always in the right place to receive that. And I definitely let my light dim down from that.
You know, it's so crazy. Like I realized this a long time ago through experiences of my own that the people oftentimes, not always, like of course there are like outlier circumstances because I literally just told you I'm your biggest fan. And the minute you launch a course, I'm freaking doing it because because what you do and what I do are so different. Like my space is you know, obviously it's about empowering women um like it's empowering women through being empowered and it's building strength. It's all these different things, but it's so much it's just it's more masculine, you know,
Mhm.
even though it's feminine. It's like the energy around it is a lot more masculine, but what you do and what I do is so like linear, right? It's do this way, do this way. Like it's doing things, it's structure, it's all these things. About what you do is like it's very spiritual, it's very connected to your femininity. Like I've watched you grow into this amazing young woman who is so like the essence of who you are is so gentle and one of my friends and clients one time called you an earth angel to me and I was like, oh, she is. She is an earth angel. And so what we do is so different, right? Like I feel like I have so much to learn from you. And I think the minute you start sharing your passion and what you do, I think that you'll change a lot of women's lives.
I think so too. And when I think about it too, I'm like, oh, I have these fears. I wouldn't even say fears. They're more like blocks. And I know that as soon as I just start, they'll be released, but it's like that initial, there's like I think it's so normal to be scared. Like I've never done any of this before. I have no idea what I'll be doing, but I think you know, you figure things out as you go. I really just need to take my own advice.
Honestly, I think fear, though, we need to normalize that fear. It's number one, it's normal. And number two, it's really healthy, right?
Well,
It's
fear
healthy to have
at its
that.
root is like care. It's because you care about something.
But you got to take and transform it, right? Like the number of times I've told you, like I learned, this is like way back when I was competing, but I was always terrified to step on stage. Like I thought I was gonna die every time because I was like, I like the process. I could prep forever. I could get ready, but then the minute you go to step on is like all the feels come. And I think someone told me this. Maybe I figured it out on my own. I don't know. But I was like, oh my gosh, fear and excitement are the exact same in our body. So
I
every
should
time I'm
be grateful
fearful,
for this.
I'm just going to tell myself I'm really excited. And that transformed things crazy for me, right? Anytime I was going into a situation that I was kind of afraid of, I'd be like, no, I'm excited.
I should really do that because you had given me that advice before, and it was before I had went on my first date with someone, and that's exactly what I did, and it ended up going really well, like even better than I would have expected. Like I'm in a relationship now because of that advice that you gave me. I don't know, I should definitely apply that to this, and I know within me, I'm like, I know that what I have to share is valuable and that I will change a lot of people's lives. I think it's almost, I don't know, I feel like there's so much that I almost don't know how to articulate it all and how to deliver it in the best, most digestible way that's like still myself, but also appeals to others. But like, I'm not trying too hard, but still it's very high quality, and people are like, oh yeah, this is worth paying this much for. Um, I
Dave used
definitely do get that imposter syndrome because I'm like I know, like I definitely have a block around being young because
oh
I'm
my God.
like, I've never done this before. Why would someone take me seriously? And I've had women older than me be like, oh, one day you'll get there. But now that I think about it, they're really just mirroring back my own fear to me. Because if I was very assertive and sure and was like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing, like nobody would dare say that to me.
Yeah, best thing ever
Inner
is
work to do. I have some inner work to do.
uh you have to imagine every single person, including yourself, having a big giant mirror in front of them. And everything that they say, like this is also life-changing. I don't even know. Was like a magic moment. And it came from like this heated conversation I had. Well, it was one-sided actually. I was heated talking to Eddie, my teenage son.
Mhm.
And I was like, everything that you think about everyone else, every projection you have towards someone else, it being someone else's fault, someone else is responsible for this, someone else didn't show up this way, someone else, blah, 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 all this stuff. Pretend there's a mirror in there and you're actually really just talking to yourself. And I think that now about situations like that, like where someone who is supposed to be supportive of you, supposed to be encouraging of you says, don't worry, one day you'll get there. I'm like, to me, I would just look at that as that person having a mirror in front of them saying, you know what, don't worry, one day I'll be there.
Yeah.
Maybe change things. Cause I think that like, yeah, the last couple of years, every time I'm like, oh, Dave this or like I'm like, no, it's me. Like, here's the mirror. It's so not him. It's me. It's me. Yeah. Wow. I was going to ask you a question about when you were talking about, actually, it wasn't a question. I was just going to make a comment, but when you said you have these blocks because you're afraid of the people closest to you.
But then also I think about it too, and it's also the people I'm not close to. And then I'm like, oh, if it's everyone, it's not everyone, it's me.
But you know, okay, Dave used to say this to me all the time, and he actually is so incredibly wise and always has like the best golden nuggets when I need them, which is so crazy. I see you shaking your head being like, what? Um, but he used to say to me all the time, like, the people that mind don't matter, and the people that matter don't mind.
I've seen that
I
quote
I
before.
wrote that down. I was like, oh, that is so true. But going back, um, I was saying I'm a huge fan of yours and what you do and the things that you've inspired me to like the rocks you've inspired me to turn over and to go into kind of some deep dark corners and start to be curious about myself. But I remember when I started out, like I was, oh my goodness, like I was years into my career making multiple six figures. And my brother, who we think the people closest to us, like our family, will be the most supportive of us. And I love my family members. But one of my brothers was like, you make enough money to like live? We're like teaching people to work out, like what? Like he was so confused because he didn't see value in what I did, but I was like a sole
Oh, other
proprietor
people do though. Yeah.
really, really well. And obviously we're not here to talk about that, but like I was like, that you just don't place value in that. And no one in my family, that's not true. Very few people have a ginormous family. Like think of how huge our family is. And we always think like our family, they're going to be our biggest fans. They're going to be our raving fans. They're going to support us right away. Like there are hundreds of people in my family and only a couple, literally a couple people have ever asked me for my advice. Like I don't like, it's not the people closest, same friends, like friends they don't want my advice. They don't want me to teach them. They like the closer you get to people, they're like they don't take you as seriously, but it's not those people that you're meant to help.
That's true. I've even noticed like the friends that you've had that you have helped even have like devalued your business more than anyone else.
Yeah, it's so interesting in business, right? Like
Actually,
I've always
a question about you regarding this. And I know you talked a little bit about like starting your business and you thought you knew so much, but like, was there a point where you were like, I have no idea what I'm doing? And like, what mindset shifts did you make to be able to eventually get to the place that you are at now?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. I think that when I didn't know much and I thought I knew everything, I didn't question myself. Like the more I learned and the more successful I became, the more women I helped. Like this is so backwards. And I want to talk about this because I think we need to normalize it in a way, because I do believe that a lot of people go through this, especially in a career similar to mine or any kind of a coaching space. Maybe not. Maybe I'm the only person. I hope not. But the more educated I got, so early in my career, in my 20s, I didn't have imposter syndrome at
Really?
all. No, not at all. Not at all. Maybe I didn't know enough to have imposter syndrome. And when I think back, I'm like, I don't think I had this incredible, unshakable confidence either, right? I didn't really know who I was. I was trying to figure out trying to navigate my way around being a mom and being a business owner and the hobbies that I had at the time, which whatever. But I think I more developed imposter syndrome the more educated I became and the more women I helped. Like I've helped thousands of women, transform their lives from all over North America, actually all over the world. But the more women I've helped, not now, but there was like this weird gray area in between where I had helped all these women overhaul their lives, like leave bad situations, empowered them through teaching them kind of in almost like a holistic way how to get strong physically, which transferred into being strong mentally and emotionally and spiritually. Like an incredible thing happens when we're empowered and when we just have the social engagement and the social support. Like I really believe in community. And so there was this weird kind of gray area of time where I really had imposter syndrome. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I do not know what I'm doing. And I was thinking, people are going to figure me out at some point, and they're going to realize that I have no clue what I'm doing, which wasn't actually true because I was changing all these people's lives. And I think it does come up once in a while for me, like a weird imposter syndrome where I'm like, well, maybe I need to take more training. Maybe I need to become more educated and more, maybe I need to level up in these areas. But I think imposter syndrome is maybe not a bad thing. When I think about it, I'm like, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's the reason we continue to level up and continue to evolve.
I've never heard that before. I've never heard someone flip it to from that negative into like a more light and more positive undertone. I really appreciate you doing that. That's really good.
Oh, thank you. But it is, like I said, maybe there is some truth to that because it is
sorry, I was gonna say, viewing it in that way, like, oh, maybe it's a sign that maybe you do need to level up. And I view the same thing as like when people are like, oh, my life's so boring right now, it's so stagnant, there's nothing going on. I'm like, oh, just get ready, something big's about to come. Like any time in my life where that's happened, where I've had a very stagnant period, right away either everything falls apart or everything comes together, and then you go from there, and then change always takes place in a beautiful way.
It's fascinating to me because, I've worked with some really like wildly successful women over the years. I've been so blessed to be surrounded by these women that are constantly pushing and constantly leveling up and constantly like improving, in one way or another. And I have actually heard so many people that on the outside, like I would say, oh my gosh, they're so incredible, right? Like they're so good at what they do. They're constantly, like I said, moving and evolving and growing. But I've heard these same women speak of feeling that exact same feeling that I just mentioned, where I said like there was this kind of gray area point where I was like, someone is gonna figure out that I'm a fake. And I've heard
Refreshing, because I think about it, I'm like, why has no one taught me how to be a human, how to live, how to do these things and figure these things out? But like, I actually think none of us really know, and we're all just kind of trying to figure everything out. Like, we're all here on Earth having this human experience that none of us asked to be here, and we've all just kind of had to figure out our own way that works the best for us. Like, none of us actually know what we're doing.
That's why I think when I think about it logically, I'm like, some things like with so much access to information in finger quotes, like, it can be kind of dangerous because I think the thing that has empowered me, is continuing to do the work, right? Like in those times where maybe I've felt like I've had imposter syndrome and felt like I don't know what I'm doing, even though I did. Continuing to move forward and continuing to get better and continuing to like refine things is what has taught me. Like I've learned so many lessons. So we learn from failure. I'll never stop saying that. We learn from failure. We learn how to be human. We learn how to live better. We learn how to connect better through failing forward, right? Failing forward is so important, and it's incredible. It's something that I teach women all the time, especially when it comes to, trying to make a change to body composition or trying to make changes to your nutrition, you're not supposed to be perfect. But now, because of like, there's this danger in access to so much information where people are only posting their best days and their best pictures and their best self, and like guilty as charged, right? Like I've said to you before, like I had a procedure done and we were supposed to film, and I was like, I don't want to film because my face looks crazy. And
Now I
really,
feel like we should just do it.
oh, and we really should have. And now, even just in this conversation, I'm like, we need to share. And I know people talk about like, oh, you got to share your bad days too. But no one actually does it. I think people like to say that because it makes them feel good.
Either
Or
like the
someone
super
who's just a hot
happy,
mess.
it's like this exactly. It's like this, either there's the super happy people who are only showing the best things, or the people who are like, I'm so depressed. And you're just like, okay, pity party. Like, that's enough.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. I suppose we
We
just need,
don't we don't normalize those like mundane moments of just they're just kind of like meh. You don't feel good, you don't feel bad, but you just don't have the energy. Maybe um I think a lot of us, especially we're in a very uh, our society, it's very patriarchal and it's focused on like the go, go, go. And busyness is seen as this like prized idealistic way of living. Like you often hear people be like, well, I do this and I do this and I do this and I work this many hours, and but I don't think we need to be, it doesn't need to always be all about that. We can have slow moments where we aren't busy and where we aren't feeling our best, and but still show up, you know?
oh, that's one topic that I feel like we need a whole hour to go over, but there it's been like this beef of mine for the last few years because I always used to tell women like, first of all, I don't know a single, like one single woman who I would classify as being not busy. Like we're busy, we keep ourselves busy. But there's this like kind of teetering point where I used to see, and I think I still see it a lot, actually less now, but there was this period of time where people just wore busyness as a badge of honor. And they
Yeah.
were like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm getting up at this time, I'm blah, 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 all these things. And I'm like, that's not cool. Like, that's not cool. That's like, you seem like you need better organization,
All those hours you're talking about working are like hours you're away from your husband and kids.
which people have to. But I'm saying, like, so many people are like, why do this? Like, so then they almost kind of like
Activate themselves.
normalize this for their families where, like, mom and dad are like, working full time and they're getting up super early because they want to prioritize their health, but then they're like in on 9 different boards and parts of all these different clubs, and they're doing this and doing that and getting girls weekends in, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And so then they fill their kids schedules the same way. They like, their kids are in hockey and tennis and lacrosse and swimming and parkour and doing all of these things and going to every birthday party and blah blah blah. Like I'm like, I am melting. Like I'm having a mental melt listening to people talk about how crazed their kids' schedules are. And I'm like,
And
that,
we live the
don't wear
life
that as
like
a badge of honor. That is not good. That's not okay, because you're teaching your kids to live in like this survival mode and to play life on defense, right? Where like they can't even figure out where to go next because they're like, oh, I got so much going on all the time. Like, that's not okay. Let's not normalize that.
and we've lived a version of this life at one point where you were working a ton and so was Dave, and I was in gymnastics and all of this stuff, but it's not sustainable, and people do really like idealize it, but having come out on the other side where we spend so much time together and we do activities together rather than our own like separate activities, it it actually is so much more enjoyable than being able to say that you do all of these things. Like, I find there's so much more balance in our life, and I feel like a lot happier and more wholesome. And even like having time to sit down as a family and eat together every night of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And those
It is
things will
crazy
not-
like that. Yeah, me saying that stuff is like having lived that definitely, and then deciding there was probably a better way to do things, and um like now being really hyper aware of people that live that, and it's because they don't know, like we do the best we
You
can,
don't know, you will exactly, you do the best you
but
can, and you don't know you're in it until it all falls to the ground because it's not sustainable.
no, and having lived that absolute madness, like, oh my gosh, if you guys saw my schedule 10 years ago, you would have died because, well, not even 10 years ago, 7 years ago, I literally like had a baby. This is a whole story that we should just have a podcast on, but I had a baby, took 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks off, went back to work full time, worked at 5 a.m., worked till 9 p.m., brought my baby like football, carried the baby, nursed him during my sessions.
A lot of
Literally
people would be
brought him
like,
with like a high priced handbag, like everywhere I went in his baby bucket. And oh my God, it's just crazy. And at that time, like you guys were young, you guys were in a lot of activities. Like we were just living this rat race, right? Like Dave and I were just like ships passing in the night. Like we were like, oh my God, like didn't know if we were coming or going. But now that Jack's older, having lived that, and creating an exit strategy from that absolute chaos, which obviously I still work. I have a full clientele. Plus, I have a really juicy online business. Like it taught me something, and we don't pack Jack's schedule like that. We just don't. Like I see an incredible amount of value in connection to the family. And that's like him spending a lot of time with you, him spending a lot of time with Eddie, us spending a lot of time together, Dave spending time with Jack. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just a better life. It's a better way to live. And I
and
don't think he'll feel like he's missed out on anything, to be honest.
and when you were talking about like all of those things you did, it's not impressive.
No, no, I
Like,
look back and I'm like, I don't actually know how I did all that.
no one could pay you to do that again. And it's, I think with what I said before, like how we idealize busyness, a lot of people would be like, oh, wow, you did all of that. That's so impressive. No, it's not. It wasn't a good way to live. Like you were exhausted all the time. All of us were, and it's not a way to live.
Oh my gosh. Like when I look back to the madness of what that was, and like everybody is in a different place. And if there are people that are living that way and that it's essential for them to do that, that it's everyone has their life to live the way they want to. But I can say, yeah, there's like a period. So, people, I told someone this the other day and they laughed. They thought it was hysterical because I was like, people now categorize things as like pre-COVID or post-COVID. Like they're like, wait, was that pre-COVID? Like I literally ask Dave all the time, like he'll say, oh, we went and did this. We're talking about, do you remember we were talking about going to WDM? And I was like, oh, I've never been there. And he's like, no, we went to this Festival of Trees. Don't you remember? And I was like, no, I wasn't there. Like I was so convinced that I was not there. And he was like, no, like, don't you remember? Like I was like, zero memory. And so now I always like reference, I'm like, was that pre 2017 or was that between 2017 and like 2019? Because Jack was born in 2017. I'm like, I have like no memories from 2017 to pretty much 2020. And I'm like, I always tell, like, he'll be like, oh, do you remember that movie? I'm like, was that sometime between 2017 and 2020? Because if it was, I was there, but I wasn't really there.
Yeah.
I mean, so true.
I think that's so common. People going through the motions of life to
Mhm.
attain this result that like really isn't actually achievable, because even if you do like get it, then what? You know, I think it's definitely important. And I think a lot of people are realizing this now with like health and wellness being so much more mainstream, that that you want balance, you want slow moments, and it's I don't think it's desirable at all to be an overachiever who's constantly busy. And like some people that gives them purpose, but if it gets to the point where you identify with what you do, maybe you need to take a break and and take some time to reconnect to yourself and know who you are and why you're doing what you're doing.
I think a lot of people are focused, like very, very focused on the outcome, but they actually don't really know what the outcome is,
Mhm.
right? Like they're like trying to get to the end, but no one has really talked about what the end is.
The
'Cause
end,
is
death. Yes.
and so they don't realize, right? Like they're on this like hamster wheel where they're just like trying to get through, like working really hard, doing all these things, like, but then what is like the journey is the process of life, not the outcome, because the outcome is death.
Mhm. Yep.
Madness. Is there anything you want to add?
I was gonna say we've almost gotten to like a whole other topic. It's always so interesting how these conversations go because they never end in the way I expect them to
Oh,
at all.
100%. I know. I'm like, what were we here to talk about? Purpose, intuition, imposter syndrome, cancel culture, and now we're talking about the process and the outcome. Is there anything that you want to add? And I do love our conversations. I love how they like twist and turn and I always
I
get a
always pan out, I don't know the word, in a really interesting way that I don't know, I enjoy having these conversations for sure. Yeah, definitely
um,
fun.
is there anything you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I think we better end this video. I can feel that it's getting a little bit long.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we're at for time, but well, let's wrap it up. That's kind of a funny way to wrap up, but we're gonna wrap this one up with a bow. And oh my gosh, I think we need to have a whole conversation on some of these last things we talked about.
Yes, let's definitely write them down so that we can go a little bit deeper into them because I know you and me both have lots of opinions.
Oh my gosh. And honestly, like we love seeing your guys' comments. Please comment if you relate to any of this because like I said, we started this just as almost like a diary, like a little way to things that we would tell our younger self, older self, our children, grandchildren. And just as a way to, like I said, like normalize some of these things that we feel that we get the pleasure of having these magic moments at the studio talking about a lot of these things with the women that are there. And we want to bring it to all of you because we love you. And so, yeah,
Aw,
let's
we
wrap it up
love
there.
you guys. Alrighty, bye bye.